Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, show number 55, June 18th, 2021. I wish everybody a happy Juneteenth weekend coming up. Jay, what's going on?
The day is almost here, Kerry. The day is almost here. Tomorrow we've got first home match day for Austin FC in the club's history. I know I'm pretty pumped about it. We'll be there in person, and we'll have a full report after the match on the environment and all that stuff. And we'll talk some Austin FC today too. But man, I'm excited for this weekend. Got some big news happening with Austin FC. Obviously, the Longhorn baseball team is heading to Omaha. We'll hit on that too. But no, everything's been great. Good couple weeks here, ready to rock and talk some Austin sports, man. How are you? Everything good with you?
Man, everything's good. It's kind of amazing we have this much to talk about, like in the second half of June, sports wise.
Yeah.
Like usually, the Sluggin OmaHorns going to Omaha. We got Austin FC. I mean, you think about it, this time of year, we've typically only been kind of just watching the Astros, or the NBA and NHL playoffs are kind of wrapping up at this point, and so start getting into those dog days of summer. So it's we got a lot to get into. Let's start off. Let's start with kind of what happened since the last show. We had mentioned that over the last few weeks there was this kind of big. June was going to be a really big month on the University of Texas campus, not only for baseball actually in action and the other spring sports that were wrapping up, but a huge recruiting month, specifically for football. And we're still working with still getting recruits for the 2022 class on campus, but there was a pretty big name that dropped in for an unofficial visit from the 2023 class. And Jay, I think you might be familiar with the last name. If you want to share that with our audience here, who was on campus, I think it was last weekend, right?
Right. So this will be the biggest recruit, the biggest national recruit that Texas will be in play for since Chris Sims, and that's Arch Manning, who's the nephew of Peyton and Eli, the grandson of Archie, and he was on campus taking an unofficial visit, as you mentioned. And by all accounts, Kerry, the visit went about as well as it could have possibly gone. They're setting a foundation to be in the picture with Arch Manning when it comes time to sign it. This guy hasn't played a snap as a junior in high school yet.
Right.
So he's for a perspective, and he's already broken a lot of his uncle's records, if that tells you how far the game has come and just how talented this guy is to break his uncle's records that have gone on and won a couple of Super Bowls apiece. His uncle's high school records, I just say, in 2 years. So no, it's the real deal. It doesn't take long when you watch him do anything for you to buy in immediately on just how talented he is. And Coach Sarkisian and the staff, by all accounts, did a great job with him on campus. So you got to set a foundation somewhere with the recruit this big. How are you feeling about Arch Manning, man?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he hasn't even taken a snap in his junior year yet. There's a long way to go in this recruitment.
Yeah.
A long way. But all you can do is position yourself as well as you can to be in that kind of final group with these recruits, and by all accounts, I think he's yet to visit Alabama. I think that's coming up. But by all accounts, it sounds like this is kind of coming down to a Texas and Clemson battle. And it's going to be really fascinating to watch this play out if it kind of remains that way. And obviously a lot can change, but to see, especially now with the passing of the name, image, and likeness laws, the types of opportunities there are for marketing, personal marketing, business opportunities, those kinds of things for a college football player in Austin is much different than it is in Clemson, South Carolina. Now, I know Clemson's super successful. Like they recruit nationally. That's not a slight, but you think about all the companies that are based here. There was the story about the University of Georgia athletes that are signing on to basically wear an Atlanta clothing company's shirts for like post-game press conferences and stuff like that. And when you start thinking about all the different companies and everything that's based here in Austin, like just the opportunities are through the roof. So, and the Mannings are pretty business savvy, and that's Peyton hasn't really turned down any kind of commercial opportunities. Eli's had himself out there, like they're savvy about these kinds of things. And that's going into the evaluation to say, well, what kind of opportunities does Arch have to make some money, build his brand, all those kinds of things before going on to the NFL, which you could probably place a pretty safe bet on that being the case with him. But yeah, there's a long way to go. Texas has positioned themselves pretty well. And if this is going to be a fun one to watch play out. This is really going to be the first big time recruit in this name, image, and likeness era. And the family loves Sark by all accounts, all those things. It's going to be really fascinating to watch.
It said the program that University of Texas has on campus is called Leverage. That's the name of the program that they're using for the name, image, and likeness stuff. And they've done a really nice job of getting it out there. You make a great point about the Mannings being super business savvy, because while you do see Eli and Peyton out there a lot, they are particular about what they choose. It just happens to be that they can do insurance and a this and a that and the Oreos and all the different things that they've been very it's upper tier stuff when they're associated with that. And when you think about brands, when you think about who brings in the most money because of their brand every single year, and it's not close, it's the University of Texas, and then it's everybody else. So Austin already has that built-in advantage. If Sarkisian can continue this relationship building, there's not going to be many teams in this conversation. Like you said, it's a Clemson, it's a Texas. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would want to go to Ohio State. I don't feel like that's going. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably take a visit. He might not. I mean, but that doesn't seem like the type of direction that he would want to go. I would feel like you said, if it's an Alabama visit and he took his Clemson visit already, and he's visited Texas, I don't know. This is going to be like a 3 or 4 horse race for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
5 offers or whatever, but this is really good 3 or 4 horse race for the next couple of years. And Texas is solidly in that discussion at this point. And that's, like you said, that's all you can really ask for at this point. So, and again, this is not just like, oh, his last name's Manning, so you want to get him. No, this is Google the guy and watch him for 30 seconds. The arm talent is real. It's legit. He's got it all. And so it would be a huge get for Sarkisian. But one of the things when we text Mike, he's always saying, just win. You got to win. If you win this season, all this stuff is going to fall into place.
Right.
You got to win this season.
Right.
Like if Sark can come out and have a good showing this season, it gets the ball rolling, and then who knows? The sky's the limit. It's sort of the expectation. The over/under for Texas wins this year in Vegas 8. Is that right? So
the latest I saw today was 8. Yeah, which 8-4.
Anything less than that is definitely a disappointment, I would think, right? Like,
yeah.
So I mean, that's sort of setting the bar right there at 8 wins and the eye test deal that we talk about so much on the show. But it's got to all happen, and Arch Manning is the biggest domino of all dominoes to fall.
Yeah. And one thing I found, I think we talked about this as well offline before with Mike, was like, in my mind, this seems, and you mentioned the name earlier, this is very reminiscent of the Chris Sims recruitment, which there was a Manning connection to that as well. But the Chris Sims recruitment with basically, like, this was at a point in Mac Brown's tenure where like Texas was good, Texas was coming off 8-win, 9-win type seasons, but to get a recruit like the number one offense, that one recruiting class with Chris Sims and Corey Redding, to get those two guys that basically kind of put the rest of the country on alert recruiting wise that Mac Brown in Texas were going to be a force. This feels the same way. Like it wouldn't surprise, Sark goes 8-4 this year. Given kind of, the talent's there, but it's young and all those things. You go, okay, 8-4. The next season, maybe go 9-3, 10-2 or something like that. And that's going to be when this Arch Manning recruitment kind of gets locked in. And it just feels very similar. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. I don't know where I lost you, Jay. Basically, I was saying it was reminiscent of the Chris Sims situation.
Yeah.
And Texas doesn't get Vince Young without the recruitment of Chris Sims, in my mind. That was kind of like what set the tone for national recruiting to go and get the number one player in the country in Vince Young later on. So we'll see. Long way to go. It's going to be a fascinating recruitment to watch. So
yeah, and it's just good. It's good to be in the conversation. This is big boy football again. We're not talking about guys that haven't done this before, that don't have a track record. That this is a coach now that although the name, image, and likeness definitely will play a role in some of this stuff. You got to have a coach that kids, they still want to play in the NFL. They still want to be developed. So to have a guy like Sark on campus and recruits at the level he does, that has the history that he does, it's Texas is in the conversation again. And again, you got to finish some of these deals. You got to win this year. You got to look like a program that's ready to take the next step, even if you actually don't, which I'd be all right with. But you got to look the part. And if Sark and the rest of this Longhorn football program look the part, then we might see that big domino fall.
Yeah, for sure. Be an interesting fall. Yeah, as recruiting goes along here, we'll get Mike back on with these June updates as we I know there's more visits happening this weekend. We'll set aside plenty of time to hit on the updates with the basketball program and the football recruiting this summer. So, well, man, let's get into the big thing that's happening tomorrow. Austin FC, man, the road trip from hell is over.
Yeah.
8 games on the road, and the boys are finally coming home. They're finally coming home. Before we get into the preview, like the actual football that's going to be played tomorrow, Q2 Stadium was opened up this week. The U.S. women's national team, the accolades for them, we could spend a whole show just going down everything that they've accomplished individually.
It's the best team in the world.
The best team in the world. And they opened up Q2 Stadium this week, which looked great on television. The stadium was full. The noise in there sounds awesome. Like the whole thing, it looks like a fantastic environment. As we've talked about, like everything's been knocked out of the park with this club, the way that they've developed, the way that they've done everything. So did you see any of that, Jay, the opening of Q2 Stadium the other night?
Watched a little bit of it, just flipped it on for a second. And but it's one of those things where even in that environment where it wasn't, it was obviously the first match played and all that stuff, and it's a big attraction in the world of soccer. Like we said, it's the best team in the world right now, and anywhere. No sport, no whatever, no, you can't find a better team, better program as the United States women's national soccer team. So for tomorrow, what does that mean for the environment tomorrow, Kerry? For me, it's going to be this explosion of, it's been building and building and building, and then the season gets here and you still have to wait 2.5 months before you see your club at home. That place is going to be so electric tomorrow. it was electric on Wednesday night, and it's going to be even more electric tomorrow, or I should say Saturday for those of you watching on a different day. But it's going to be crazy, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's going to be wild.
yeah, and that's where like as enjoyable as it was watching the women's national team and the environment there. I mean, it was a pretty family friendly crowd. Which, not to say that the Austin FC games are going to be family friendly, but I think in terms of the noise, it's the supporter section. It's going to be a pretty incredible environment Saturday night. And as loud as it was on TV, I think it's going to be multitudes louder on Saturday. So it's yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I cannot wait to see how this environment is in person. And we've seen all the images of the watch parties. We've seen the traveling Austin FC fans. Um, specifically, what was it, the game in Colorado that just was making more noise than the entire rest of the stadium for Colorado Rapids fans. Like that passion.
Sort of set the tone. Yeah.
Yeah, that passion, that everything you mentioned, like this anticipation of having to go through this road trip from hell, and watching the team for 8 matches before them coming home. And it sounds like the players are excited. It sounds like they've been ready to get a home game and actually play in front of a supporting crowd. And it's yeah, it's going to be electric. I will provide a full report on that, but let's get into the match. I mean, so what are we going to see on Saturday night? I guess we'll hit on this real quick. Last weekend was the final game of this stretch run. Another trip to Sporting Kansas City, which was a heartbreaker the first time around. Had a 1-0 lead. Alex Green gets sent off, and Kansas City ties it, and they score a late winner, very late winner, to get all 3 points out of that. This time, Austin goes up to Kansas City and gets out of there with a point, a 1-1 draw. Cecilio Dominguez scores the opener. Kansas City pulls one back in the second half. We were watching that game. We watched the last, in that second half there, where Kansas City was just pouring it on. Like they were, I mean, Austin FC had chances, especially on the counterattack. Redes had a big miss there with about 5-10 minutes to go, I think, where if he just puts it on frame, Austin wins the game. Yeah. Yep. But so there were some chances like that, but Stuver, again, even with the Kansas City pressure, everything that they were throwing forward at Austin to try to get the win, Stuver he's a brick wall. If there was an MVP award given after 8 games, I don't think there would be any question that he would be Austin's most valuable player, like at all. Oh, yeah. He's been that good and consistent, and just everything that he's done has been just incredible. So, Jay, what do you make of this Kansas City game going into San Jose here?
Well, Stuver
San Jose coming in here. They're coming in here now, we can say.
Yeah, Stuver has said that he's just been waiting on his opportunity to get a chance to play every day. He's just been waiting on this chance and waiting, and finally he gets the job, and he knows it's his, and he's going to be out there every day, and he's played like somebody that's been hungry for an opportunity, and somebody that's not going to let this opportunity slip through his fingers. I mean, it's been impressive, because with the style that Austin FC have shown that they're going to play, he leads the league in saves, and it's not close. I mean, he stops more shots than anybody in the league, and he does it in a way where it's not just always run-of-the-mill stuff. Like he's making great saves.
Acrobatic, world-class type saves in big moments.
Yes, in the biggest moments. And whether it's just he is by far the MVP of this club through 8 matches. And that would for me would be the biggest loss if Stuver goes out. I'm looking here. I'm seeing he's not the overall save leader anymore, but there's this the keeper from LA is. But either way, he's still like he's Johnny on the spot all the time. He's always in the right place. He seems to have the trust of his defenders, which is why I feel like those defenders are willing to take as many chances as they do, because they trust that Stuver will be in the correct position to make a save, and he's done a good job with that so far.
Yeah, and it's just so funny, like thinking back to when this team was built before the season, going in, I think we discussed it here. Goalkeeper was, for me, probably the biggest question mark, because you had a couple guys with Stuver and Tarbell who have been around the league for a while, but there was no clear, like, this is going to be the number one. You know, there was the younger keeper that was brought in that's been with the U.S. setup, and like he might get his opportunities later on, but like, I mean, Stuver won the job and he's run away with it, and he's been incredible. And it's interesting. So it's interesting you mentioned the defense, because going into this San Jose match, Romagna's back. He's going to be fit. He's off the injured list. Jimenez, who looked really, really well before that injury, he's already been upgraded to questionable. There was discussion of him maybe not even coming back for this season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already been upgraded to questionable. I doubt we see him this weekend, but that's another good sign for the depth of this defense. San Jose, they can score some goals, but with the way that Austin has been playing defensively and the way that Stuver has been playing, I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing the back four start pushing up a little bit more into the attack, especially given this is the home opener. San Jose is tied with Houston Dynamo for the most goals allowed in the Western Conference. And again, they can score some, but they allow a lot. This could be a high-scoring game Saturday night. But the thing is, I trust Austin's goalkeeping and defense more than I would trust San Jose's defense. And I think Austin's going to start putting some numbers forward. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've already seen it with guys like Komanich getting involved up in the attack. I think they kind of know that this is the opportunity to go out and entertain a bit. And but again, you can do that knowing that you trust Stuver at the back, that whether it's Cascante or Romagna that gets the start next to Beasler, you feel good about those guys. Nick Lima's been coming around.
Yes.
And that's a guy we've both been, especially, I know you've been his biggest critic, but but we've both been critical of him. Like, he's come around.
Yeah, yes.
Kansas City match, he was, I know they were putting a lot of pressure forward. He held ground. He was solid.
Yeah, he was.
And especially now with Jimenez kind of working his way back in health-wise, like, I'm starting to feel pretty good about what the back four and Stuver are doing. So Josh Wolf needs to unleash him. Let's go. Green lights. Let's get
green lights.
Green lights. Let's get Pochettino. It's time to go. This is the chance to put on a show in front of your home supporters against the team that's, again, tied with Houston for the most goals allowed in the West. Let's go.
Yeah, it's setting up for Austin FC to have the home debut they desire. Now, do you go and take advantage of it? Can you make that a reality when it's been set up for you? Coming back home after an 8-game road trip with 8 points, that's not bad. Like, that's like to have 8 points off of 8 away matches to start your season. That's respectable for any team. And any 8 road matches you pick in a row in a season, to get 8 points out of those, most clubs would be pretty happy with that. And now they're set up to really, really set a tone for the rest of the season moving forward. The crowd is going to be ready. It's going to be an environment that you get into any sport to play in, and it's just going to be okay. Can they execute the game plan and make it happen? I'm excited that we're going to be there. I'm excited to be a part of that, because I think that it's going to go Austin FC's way. And I'm just, it's time. The city's been wanting this for a while. It's going to be an atmosphere like nothing outside of 100, 2,000 at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium on a Saturday. This is going to be the next biggest thing in town, and it's going to feel like that sort of an environment when we get there tomorrow. So it's going to be awesome, and I hope that it's fulfilled. I hope they find a way to make that happen, because, like we said, it's set up for it to work.
Well, and that's what we watch enough soccer that like you set out on the road, especially in a hostile environment, not necessarily with the mindset to get a draw, but you're going to play a little more reserved. You're going to play more steady on defense and really kind of take care of that part of the game. And if, you're able to get a counterattack, you're able to put the attack together, great. But when teams are at home is when they really feel comfortable. You've got the support of the entire stadium behind you. You can get creative. You can get adventurous. You can do things that you typically wouldn't game plan to do on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think we're going to see. A lot of people say like, well, yeah, they're good defensively. They get these draws, but where's the excitement? Where are the goals at? And I think I don't want to say see a different team Saturday night. I think it's going to be an extra level to the way that they've been playing. I like, you mentioned the 8 points out of 8 games on the road. You think about with the gut punch that happened in Kansas City the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the Nashville match, which switching off for a couple minutes there. And even with as bad as they played there, without those couple minutes where the Romagna injury happened, Cascante had to come on, and then the goal immediately happened. Like, we're talking about they could have really come out with more points there. Even with all that, if Austin wins Saturday night, they can jump up as far as 5th in the Western Conference, right back in the thick of the playoff race. And we talk about the best teams in this league. LA Galaxy's averaging only 1 point on the road. They're 3rd in the Western Conference. Portland Timbers, who have been extremely successful in this league, they're averaging 1 point on the road this year. Some of these teams like LAFC, who's right there with a team we talked about as one of the favorites this year. They're right there in the standings with Austin, and Austin has a better point average on the road than LAFC does this year. And that's why I'm glad that there's been this kind of like, I don't want to say overreaction to how this team has looked on the road. It seems that way, at least. I don't think people have been like incredibly critical, like, oh, this is boring, like this team sucks, I'm not going to care after 8 games. Like,
right.
It doesn't seem to be that way, and I don't think that's gonna happen, because I think when this team gets home, they're going to look great. They look organized, and that's down to the coaching. We've talked about that with Josh Wolf, where if he has them looking as organized as they are in the defensive mindset, and then I think that they can absolutely do that with the attack going forward.
Pieces are coming together, and it's like we talked about this. Josh Wolf got through the end of that run. We learned a little bit about him as a manager to be able to come out of that stretch, get that crucial point on the road to finish that 8-game run. It's hard not to feel confident about his abilities and that the development that we hope to see. It's hard not to believe that that's going to happen, just with the way that he's handled everything up to this point. He's checked all the boxes in my mind, in terms of the tinkering with the lineups, figuring out who's worked well with who, and has dealt with injuries, and has dealt with he loves to use his substitutions, and he should, because it's nothing but he's bringing nothing but gas coming off the bench. So why wouldn't you? Why
Exactly.
wouldn't you use up your all your substitutions? And it's just, in my mind, he's done a really nice job, and it makes you feel like that now with Austin FC getting some home games in and settling in and getting to sleep in their own beds a little more, that we might really start to see the best of what this club will already be.
Well, you want to put a prediction on Saturday's game?
Yeah, I'll go 3-1.
Oh man, that's
Verde.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. All right, I'll go 3-0 just for the sake
All
of
right.
having a different prediction. I think Austin's gonna score, and I think they're gonna score in bunches. So, and
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see it. It's gonna be a fun night Saturday, I think.
Only 6 goals on the season so far, though, right? Like we're going out.
Well,
So I mean,
yeah, but again, I don't feel like that's indicative of what this team actually has.
no, but I think the roof's going to come off of that place tomorrow, and it's going to be. Yeah, I think 3 goals. I think 3 goals is it might take 3 to win now. You know, with what you were saying, with the way that San Jose puts the ball into the back of the net, it might take 3 to win.
This might be a 4-3 game Saturday night. Which for the fans, for the people that are just getting into the sport that come to watch, they got season tickets and they're there for the first time and watching this 4-3 game is extremely exciting. I mean, talk about a way to get fans locked in that are just getting into the sport. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll go 3-0. Why not? The homer pick.
All right, love it.
Well, Jay, we got to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we have some College World Series to talk about. The OmaHorns, the University of Texas at Omaha is back for the 37th time, and we'll get into that. But yeah, we'll be right back.
All right.
Welcome back, everybody. Took a little break there. Let's come back and talk about the OmaHorns, the University of Texas at Omaha. The Sluggin Horns have God, man, where do we even start with this team? I mean, we've been discussing them all season. You know, we talked about the Big 12 tournament and how they kind of did what they needed to do there to really lock in a top 8 seed. You know, when you go into a regional, you also, you know, or I guess heading into the tournament, you always want to be in a position to host a super regional when it comes down to it, if you get through the regional. And I mean, Texas did everything in the regional that you would ask of them. They just completely dominated their regional group. It really wasn't even close. It was just an absolute dominant performance before heading into the super regional against South Florida. And short of South Florida tying up, I guess it was game 1, right? Tying up game 1 in the top of the 9th, just for Texas to walk it off in the bottom of the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
The super regional wasn't even close. Like, there was no question about it. Like, when you look at what happened to the teams around the country, you know, South Florida made it to the super regional for knocking off the Florida Gators. You know, we discussed that, like, hey, Florida's a great program, but if Florida's going to knock off, well, then they got to deal with Miami. You look at what happened to Arkansas in the super regionals, the number 1 seed in the country. And, you know, I don't know if there was another team in the super regionals that played as dominant as Texas did. Unless I mean, I just can't think of any. Virginia struggled with Dallas Baptist, but they got through. Mississippi State, who the Horns are going to face, went 3 games with Notre Dame. That was a back and forth series. I mean, Texas goes up to Omaha, the highest national seed left in the tournament. I mean, that didn't take a lot to happen because Arkansas was number 1. They lost in the super. Texas was number 2. We've been talking about expectations with this team for a while.
Yeah.
This is a national title winning type squad at this point. They're putting it all together.
All the pieces are there. You've got a lineup that from 1 to 9, there aren't any easy outs. You've got pitching that is just, you're so deep at starting pitcher. Like it takes a lot to beat Texas twice in over a few days, just because the pitching is that good. And very rarely do you see a team that sort of starts off the way that they did this season with the 3 straight losses, and then you just sort of looking to see how they were still learning and growing as a team. And we saw the team that they grew into, which arguably was the top team in the country for a portion of the year.
Right.
And now you just see it all. They're hot. They're not only one of the best teams, if not the best team in college baseball, but they're also peaking at the right time. And when you have those two pieces together, that's what leads to national championships. That's the sort of, when you look at it, Texas, the expectation was, get to a super regional. And then after that, really all bets are off. Now that they're in Omaha.
Right.
And they are the highest seeded team left. You sort of look at it and it's like, okay, this is Texas's to go out and get. And I think it's, again, and we say this with March Madness, that at this time of the postseason, anything is possible. Texas can go 2 and barbecue and be done real quick. I don't see that happening, like I said, with the depth of this pitching staff, but it's a big part of this is just how good they are on both sides offensively, and they're not bad defensively either. And then the pitching is just phenomenal. So yeah, I would think that they'll do very well in Omaha, Kerry, because like I said, they're just playing that good of baseball right now. But in terms of expectations, man, it's so hard to pin down baseball, the College World Series,
right.
man. But I mean, if it's setting up right now for Texas to have some success.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We're down to the final 8 in the country, and which is an achievement in itself. And you don't want to say, okay, well, if this, anything short of just going in and winning the national title is going to be a disappointment. I don't think that's, if they go 0-2 and get sent home, I feel like that'll be a disappointment, clearly. But they've proven that they're, at least right now, one of the top 8 teams in the country. And this is a team that I think can make some noise in Omaha. We'll see how the bracket plays out. Vanderbilt's a really good team. We'll see how it goes. I like that you mentioned kind of what the 1 through 9 is doing, because that was something we hit on. And I think that walk-off game against South Florida was a great example of what this lineup can do. And you had Ardoin getting on base, and then you had Kennedy at the absolute bottom of the order, a guy that's been struggling and has, just at the plate. He's good everywhere else, but struggling at the plate. Just absolutely belt one out for that walk-off. I think they call it technically like a walk-off double or whatever it was. But it just shows that these guys, there's no quit. There's no sense when it's like, oh, okay, well, we're coming up the bottom of the 9th, and this is, it's 2 outs, and we got our 8, 9 guys coming up to bat. Let's take this to the 10th and start with the top of the order and finish this thing. There wasn't any feeling of that. It was like, no, we got the guys to go do it now, and they came through. Because Pierce obviously has faith in them. The rest of the team has faith in them, and you can tell that the players believe in themselves and know that they have their teammates behind them. So.
You can always tell when a locker room or a clubhouse or whatever it is, you can always tell when it's a clubhouse that players enjoy being in by the way that they play on the field, and different guys stepping up at different times, and everybody plays loose and nobody gets down. And if you do, your teammates are picking you up all the time. And it's just to watch the sort of evolution of this team throughout the season, because they got their daubers down a little bit early on when they got smacked around in that opening season tournament.
Right.
And then, that can set the tone and lead to some bad things if you don't have a handle on your clubhouse. So I think that speaks a lot to the manager, I think, or the skipper, or whatever. I think it speaks a lot to the leaders in the clubhouse. David Pierce has just done a nice job of figuring out what makes this team click.
Right.
And they're playing their best baseball of the season at the right time.
And they can beat you different ways.
Yeah.
And you have someone like Antico at the top of the lineup that can get on the pads. He can steal bases. You can bunt your way. You can play Augie ball and win. But then you also got guys like Zubia, Melendez, these other guys that can just knock it out of the park. And if they're knocking it out of the park at Dish Falk, they can knock it out of the park in Omaha, where this TD Ameritrade Park is is a tough place to hit home runs. And you're going to see this in this college where you see it every year. These teams that play in ballparks that are home run friendly, all of a sudden they can't hit it out of the park when they get to Omaha. And Texas is one of those teams that plays in a home run unfriendly park. They've always shown up with lower home run numbers than other teams. You see on the broadcast, this guy leads the team with only 10 home runs for the entire year, and then they hit 3 in Omaha.
Right.
So they can beat you different ways. They can play defense, pitching. They're a complete team. You just got to see if you get the breaks and kind of how it all falls out. It's baseball. Anything can happen. But I really like that you mentioned that opening series, because we've come full circle. Texas opened up that tournament in Arlington against Mississippi State, who is the team that Texas is going to face Sunday to open up the College World Series. Mississippi State won that game 8-3 to open up the season, where Texas just got stomped up there by Mississippi State, Arkansas. Like, that was, you couldn't have asked for kind of like a worse way to open up the season, honestly. But they rebounded, as you mentioned, and David Pierce did a great job with that. But Ty Madden is going to be the starter Sunday, who was also the starter for that opening game against Mississippi State. He went 4 innings, had 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts in that game against Mississippi State. And he's going Sunday night. I mean, this is where this is going to be an interesting one. It comes full circle. Mississippi State, I was hearing on the local show, like they haven't quite been the same team the second half of the season that they were early on. It's interesting that they got past Notre Dame, because I think Notre Dame was playing really, really good ball. And it's kind of weird, because I think I'd almost prefer to play Mississippi State in this situation. I think if Notre Dame would have finished out that super regional, I'd be feeling a little, because they were a really hot team as well. And yeah, this is going to be interesting. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of revenge on the mind of the Horns here, right? Like, there's got to be something. I mean, do you play that angle if you're David Pierce? This is a team that beat up on us at the beginning of the season. Ty Madden was the start. Let's go out and let's show them what we're actually about.
I don't know that David Pierce has to say it.
Right.
I don't think that that's something that he's gonna. That I don't know that he will or would.
That's something the players are going to handle.
Yeah, but I do think it'll be on their minds, and I think they have a point to prove. And then maybe there was a little chirping during that first game, because that's what college baseball player. There's a little chirp. They're going to remember that, and then there'll be a little bit more chirp after the next time we talk, and all of these games. So. I mean, the players know that this is one of those things where it's like the things that go unsaid in the locker room that everybody just knows, and they'll take care of it. And I think that Texas, if we want to talk about a prediction, there's nobody that's playing better baseball than the Longhorns right now. They've been the best team for a long stretch of this season. The other team that could have been in that conversation is now out. So it's the Longhorns to lose. And I think when we talk after this tournament, I think we're going to be very pleased with the results. It's just, it's hard not to believe that a team playing this well at this time won't carry that momentum over. These are some good baseball teams. There's always good baseball teams when you get to the end of the season. And in these settings, in a 1-game setting, you open up with a loss against Mississippi State, and you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yep.
In terms of clawing your way back. So it's not to be taken lightly, but I think Texas is playing confidently. They're winning with ease in a lot of instances, and even in the game, like you said, that it was close. It's like, yeah, all right, you tied it up, but we're not going to let that get us down and then come back. And I was going to say earlier, I don't know how that they weren't in a no doubles defense there to stop that from happening, but it didn't matter. He crushed that ball
first.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in no doubles there, you keep the runner from scoring.
And there was 2 outs. Like you can at least like manage that. I know the top of the order was coming. I mean, that's my only explanation for that is that South Florida really thought. I don't want to say that lowly of Ardwan and Kennedy at the end of that lineup, but maybe that was the case. These are 2 guys that are not going to beat us here.
And that should scare anybody that plays Texas in Omaha, because it could be anybody at any time. Everybody's a tough out, and nobody is afraid to step up in the moment. On the pitching side or hitting, it doesn't matter.
I tell these damn dogs to.
The peanut gallery. What's going on over there? Tell them we'll take the Q&A is after the show. We can't tell them we'll sit down with them after the show and have a Q&A.
Yeah. Well, Zeke the dog just wanted to let me know. He made an interesting point about we were talking about the David Pierce, the revenge, the Mississippi State factor. That could you ask for kind of a better situation for a team that's really running hot? A better situation to keep a team grounded. Like you're playing really good ball, you just blaze through the regional, you smash through the super regional, you're confident, you're feeling good, you're the highest national seed, and you get to play a team that is also really good and kicked your ass to open up the season. And they can kick your ass again if you don't get your minds right and you stay focused heading into this game 1. I mean, for me, that's kind of the perfect scenario, because that's all David Pierce really has to say is like, hey, I know we're in Omaha and I know we're everybody's reading they're seeing their social media, they're seeing the hype, they're seeing the news clippings and all that stuff. But this is a team that beat up on us to open up the season. And if we don't take this seriously, they can do it again. And then you're, like you mentioned, behind the 8 ball, you're in that loser bracket. And I just couldn't think of a better situation than that. Like if they were coming in, I know NC State's a good team. They just knocked Arkansas out. Or like, let's even use the Notre Dame example, a team that Texas didn't play this season. You go, all right, well, let's go in there and just beat these guys. To have that kind of extra incentive to keep you focused, a team that's already beat you this season and pretty handily, like convincingly, Pierce doesn't have to say anything. The focus is already there. We have to take this team seriously. We have to take a professional approach, because if we don't, it could be a short stay in Nebraska. So, which is typically the preferred scenario, but when it's the College World Series, you want to stay longer if it's so.
Yeah, it's the only time you want to
stay in Nebraska as long as you can.
In Omaha. Yeah, exactly. No offense to our viewers in Nebraska.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure we have a lot of viewers in Lincoln and what other fine towns there are in the Cornhusker state. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be fun, man. I'm kind of as you guys know, can sometimes be a pessimist by nature when it comes to the Longhorns. It's kind of the sky is going to fall at some point. When is the bottom going to fall out with this team? Like this is the best see, I'm going to say this, and this is on video, and it's going to be held to me, but like, I feel really good about this team. It is really difficult for someone like me who tries to overanalyze and critique. Like, it's really hard for me to find holes in this team. And short of them just mentally not being there, like if they're there, focused and playing the baseball that they've been playing, I don't think there's a team in this tournament that matches up. Maybe Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well, when you get 31 scholarships or whatever they have, that's another story for another day, I guess. But it's just, again, there's so many good teams at this time. Texas is arguably playing the best of anybody, and yeah, it's easy to see them doing really, really well in this thing. So it is going to be a blast. It's the pitching is lights out right now. The hitting is timely. The hitting is not just for singles. It's for extra bases and going over the fence. Antico is probably the amount of runs that guy scores.
Jersey Mike, man. Jersey Mike. That guy is something else.
I mean, it's impressive to watch him play. And I have a feeling he's going to be somebody that's going to have a really nice week in Omaha, for sure.
I don't have this in front of me, but I saw something. Is he only a couple stolen bases away? He may have already passed it in the final game against South Florida. I think he's something like a stolen base or two away from shattering like the postseason or single season Texas stolen base record or something. I don't know. He's incredible. Like his savviness on the bases. There was that, which one was it? Forget which regional game it was, where the catcher would throw back to the pitcher with this really high looping ball back to the pitcher. And he was aware of that. And as soon as the catcher released it, he took off to second base. And the outfielders, or like everybody that was on the field for the opposing team, was like, what the hell is this? How did he? Yeah. God. Well, okay, I guess the catcher needs to start throwing it a little more direct to the pitcher.
Yeah.
He's a smart player. He's a David Pierce type player, and I think he's going to have a big tournament because he's the tone setter.
Absolutely.
So
hands down.
So what's the schedule looking like with this? We have Sunday opening up against Mississippi State. I guess it all kind of depends on what happens from that game. Let me see, because I'd be curious to know. Should have had this pulled up in front of me. Yeah, so we got tomorrow, Stanford, NC State. Stanford's playing really good ball. They went up to Lubbock and just. Yep. I was mentioning, I don't know if anybody's playing as well as Texas. I think you can maybe make the argument for what Stanford did in that super regional against Tech. They went up there and just crushed them. That could be a team to look out for. They get NC State, who knocked out Arkansas. Vanderbilt and Arizona are also opening up Saturday. Tennessee and Virginia is on the Texas side of the bracket. So if Texas beats Mississippi State, they'll get the winner of that Tennessee-Virginia game on Tuesday night. The loser of Tennessee-Virginia in Texas-Mississippi State will play Tuesday afternoon. So Tuesday will be the next day that we'll have a Texas interest, and hopefully it's a night game.
Yeah, no kidding. Watch that. Be good. It's going to be. Don't miss it. I think if you have an opportunity to catch these games, watch them, because this is a special team, and I feel good about what's going to happen in Omaha for them.
Yeah, and they're a fun team to watch.
Mm-hmm.
If you like a specific type of baseball, you'll probably see them play it at some point.
Yep.
And what else can you ask for? So. Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. It's been a few years. 37th trip to Omaha. So
Is that good?
I think that's okay. I think that's a record.
Oh.
Searching for the 7th national title in baseball. So hopefully we can report that in the coming weeks. So, but Yeah, that's what we got, man. We got a full plate for us this weekend. We've got Austin FC, like we talked about, tomorrow night, Saturday night, and then College World Series. Let's get after it.
Looking forward to this Austin FC match. It's going to be crazy and good vibes all around for Austin FC, for Longhorns baseball, for some all gas, no breaks recruiting,
Green
for some
lights.
for some green lights, for some all beard, no breaks recruiting, all good vibes, good energy around Austin and the clubs around it. So let's keep it going.
Hell yeah, man. Stay in the air conditioning. Don't forget to set your thermostats to 85 degrees during the day, like we were asked. So
yeah. Yeah. Oh God, I can't.
At least it wasn't talking about Tom Herman. All right. That's it. We'll call it there. We'll call it there.
Yeah,
cut it.
Thanks,
everybody. We'll see you next week.
ATX represent Fatal, baby.
Falling on 6 on a Saturday.